y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and on this episode we're going to review Hell in a Cell. Now before we get into it, we're going to grade everything on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the best, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Let's jump right into it with the pregame show for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship, The New Day versus Rusev and Aiden English. I don't know what it was about this. I don't know if it's because where it was placed. I don't know. It didn't do anything for me, to be honest with you. I like the guys involved. I like the New Day. I like Rusev Day, Aiden and Rusev. It just, for some reason, this match fell flat. The New Day retained their tag titles. Of course, there's a little bit of dissension between Rusev and English. So they're going back to teasing the split again. I'm going to give this one a 2 out of 5. It was okay, but I don't know. Maybe I just expected a lot more. Now we're going to jump right into the pay-per-view. And they're going to start off the pay-per-view with a Hell in a Cell match. And before we get into that, a lot of talk came about the cell being red now. Now, I'm old enough that the red cell doesn't offend me, but I am still angry that they got rid of the blue steel cage. That really pisses me off. If you don't remember the blue steel cage, which became black during the Attitude Era, and then they did away with it to go to the fencing-like cage that most other companies use. But during the 80s and 90s, the then WWF would use a steel cage that was like blue, look solid iron, instead of the fencing cage that other companies, WCW used, AWA used. Every other company basically used the fence style cage. To me, the blue cage, not only does it harken back to my childhood, but it set it different. It made it different and special. It looked more dangerous because it had no give. If you hit the blue cage, it was just sitting there. It was easier to climb. It, aesthetically, to me, I found it more impressive. And a lot of it comes from the old LGN toys, which had the steel cage accessory and me playing with those toys. But I was way more offended by that than them painting the cell red. Now, the painting of the cell, I was on the fence about it. Funnily. No, I didn't mean that pun, but hey, it works. Until I seen it. And when they actually used it in this first match, which would be Jeff Hardy versus Randy Orton, it made the match feel different. It did have a more demonic feel to it. It did feel like they're almost like it radiated heat off of the cage. And it made everything that demonic looking blood red that they used, which, to me, the painting of the cell red added to what the cell itself, its imposing structure. Now, what they did, I don't know if they just painted it, but to me, it sounded different. It sounded like maybe they used a different mesh and it was rubber coated or plastic coated over the metal. It had to be metal, at least on the top and the side that they climbed, because if it was plastic, I don't think it would hold up people of that weight. But anyway, I digress. We're talking too much about the structure. Let's get back into the match. To me, this match was brutal. It was disturbing. There was a lot of really horrific spots in the match. The one that most people are talking about, and turn away if you're squeamish because I'm going to show it right here, is right now, turn away. It's the screwdriver in Jeff Hardy's ear piercing, his gauging, and then Randy Orton turning that, it made me wince and turn away from the screen, which doesn't happen often. I watch CZW. I used to watch Japanese death matches, and seeing guys getting thrown into light tables hit with weed whackers. Something about the ear, maybe it's because it's a pain I can understand. Maybe it's because, we've all, if you've had your ears pierced before, you felt what an ear piercing feels like. Or, even something as simple as having an ear infection. You know that ear pain could be some of the worst. So maybe that's what it was, but it was very disturbing. Not in a bad way, though, because the Hell in a Cell should be disturbing. Hell in a Cell should be a match that's violent. And this had everything you would want from a Hell in a Cell. Randy Orton was cut pretty badly. They had that spot. Then there's a spot at the end when Jeff basically drops from a cage through a table. A little bit weird ending with Orton forcing the ref to count the pin. But to me, it helped the overall story of Jeff Hardy hurting himself trying to hurt Randy Orton. To me, this was my favorite match of the night, and Randy Orton won, by the way, which I mentioned with the pin. I give this match a 5 out of 5. I think, and I'm going to talk about this in some of the later matches, I really think they should have closed the show with this match, because to me, this was the best match of the night. This is what you would want from a Hell in a Cell. This fits right in with the classic Hell in a Cell matches. You could put it up against any of them, and it's going to hold its own. A lot of the recent Hell in a Cells haven't been able to say that. Now, coming off of that, after spending forever on Hell in a Cell, we have for the SmackDown Women's Championship, Charlotte Flair versus Becky Lynch. I liked this match. It was good. And then towards the end, it got a little bit weird. Charlotte goes for a spear. It looks like Becky meant to turn the spear into a DDT, but kind of she just rolled through the spear and pinned Charlotte. And this is going to be the first of a running problem I had with the show during the night. I was kind of confused by the finish. The Hardy and Orton, it was different because I feel like that was scripted to be that way. This one, I feel like there was a botch. It felt botched. It felt weird, I guess, is the best way to say it. Becky wins. The crowd goes apeshit crazy for Becky. Charlotte tries to shake her hand. Becky looks like she's trash talking Charlotte and walks away. Hopefully, this will be us seeing Becky go back to being a face and maybe even Charlotte being the heel. The end portion of the match, probably the end 5 minutes of the match, kind of took it away from me. I'm going to give this one a 2 out of 5. The only way I would recommend watching this is if you're absolutely a Becky Lynch fan and you want to see her win the championship. Other than that, the ending took so much away from it that it hurt. It hurt the match overall. Now the next match of the night, for the Raw Tag Team Championships, the champions Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. I've seen a lot of people online were feeling that this was the match of the night and it should be. I've seen a couple people calling for it to be a 5-star match. I didn't enjoy it as much. I felt like it was nothing special. To me, it felt like a match you could see on Monday Night Raw. Yeah, all 4 of the guys are insanely talented. There's no question about that. And all 4 of them were super hyper great athletes. The thing that I think hurt this, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, is Hardy versus Orton set the tone for a level of violence that it was hard to follow. Charlotte and Becky couldn't follow it, And in this match, even if you're listening to the crowd was dead during most of this match. To me, the match felt like a Raw thrown together main event. And I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't my least favorite match of the night, but it wasn't what it could have been, and maybe I seem to be the only one that I've talked to that has this opinion on this match. Ziggler and McIntyre picked up the win, by the way, but I just kind of found it mediocre, and from the 4 guys involved, I expect better than mediocre. I'm going to give the match a 3 out of 5. Like I said, I found it mediocre. I think it felt more like a Raw main event than it did a special match on a pay-per-view. Now, next up, for the SmackDown World Heavyweight Championship, we have AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe. This was another match that was really good, but hampered by the ending. I've always said that Joe and AJ can basically walk their way through a great match with each other, and they can. They're 2 of the best wrestlers in the world, 2 of the most talented storytellers there is. The ending, though, again, I hate to keep bringing these things up. Joe gets AJ in the Coquina Clutch. He flips backwards almost like Bret Hart did to Steve Austin when Steve Austin had Bret in a $1 Million Dream and pinned Bret, flip backwards to pin him. AJ does a similar thing to pin Joe. However, AJ's tapping while Joe's pinning him. The ref doesn't see AJ tap. AJ wins. Now, this wasn't a botched finish like I felt like the Flair and Lynch was. However, it was a wrong finish in my opinion. You should have flipped the script. Joe is the heel in this. Joe should have been the one, if you were going to do this type of thing, that was tapping while he was pinning AJ. If you follow what I'm saying. Joe should have been the one that got the benefit of a bad ref decision. The heel should be the one doing this. Not the babyface. Not the face that runs this place or the face of SmackDown or the house that AJ Styles built. He's the face in this. So I don't know who made that decision, but to me, I felt like it was a bad decision. It should have been the other way around, the heel winning because the ref cheated the face. Alas, we have AJ Styles win. He didn't look like the winner, but he won. I'm going to give this match a 3 out of 5. I think if we would have had a better finish, I would have felt better about the match overall. Like I said, Joe and AJ can go, and they're 2 of the best wrestlers in the world. Now, speaking of one of the best wrestlers in the world, we have Daniel Bryan and his wife Brie Bella versus The Miz and his wife Maryse. I like this feud. I like where they're going with it. Bryan and The Miz's interaction was pretty good. Some of the interactions when it was both. But Maryse and Brie Bella had no chemistry. For people that have known each other for 9 years and have wrestled each other before, Brie Bella and Maryse both looked very awkward. And to quote my friend Paul, who said something similar about a different match on the night, it felt like watching, whenever these 2 were in the ring, it felt like watching 2 baby giraffes trying to masturbate. They botched so much. It was almost like watching an episode of Tough Enough where the kids are trying to learn how to wrestle. And these are 2 women that have been on and off and on the roster for the better part of the last decade. So they should be more progressed. Brie Bella, actually, at one point I thought was one of the better women wrestlers in the WWE. But I don't know if it's just their chemistry. It threw everything off. There was a weird roll-up at the end with Maryse awkwardly rolling up and pinning Brie Bella. and the Miz and Maurice picking up the win. I hate to say this because I love the guy so much, but this is the worst match I've ever seen Daniel Bryan involved in. And I'm going to give this one a 1 out of 5. This was my least favorite match of the night. I liked the feud. I liked the build-up. The execution to me was terrible. And the match was terrible. And the quality of the match was terrible. And it took everything good they did and pulled that away from it. Now, coming from that, we have for the Raw Women's Championship, Ronda Rousey versus Alexa Bliss. This was an okay match. They relied heavily on Bliss attacking Ronda's rib injury, which I understand because you have to be able to sell why a 5'2", 90-pound woman can hurt one of the toughest women on the planet, or a lady who legitimately ran through the Olympics, got an Olympic bronze medal in judo, ran through UFC, had something like 10 wins in UFC, which is not nothing to sneeze at. Even if she did have a couple losses at the end, she ran through some of the top competition in women's mixed martial arts. So she's a legitimate badass. There's no doubt about it. So I understand why they did it, and I like Alexa. I think she's a good heel. There were times, though, that it felt like how is she hurting Ronda? How is what Alexa doing hurt someone that much bigger and stronger like Ronda Rousey? And when Alexa would wrestle someone like Nia Jax, we didn't have that similar issue. She adjusted her style for Nia. And I don't know if it's maybe Ronda is so new to the sport and she's had such great matches that maybe I'm looking at it more critical than I would someone at the same range. Because remember, folks, Ronda still has only a handful of matches behind her. So maybe I'm being more critical of Ronda than I should be at this point. But you're in a prominent spot on a pay-per-view holding the top women's championship for your show. Maybe you deserve that criticism. I thought this was a good, not great match. Ronda wins with the arm bar. I'm going to give it again. I'm going to give this one a 3. I think it was very middle of the road. And another thing I didn't understand, we had 2 women's championship matches, but neither of them was in Hell in a Cell. Why not? The women have already proved they could go in Hell in a Cell, so why did we hold off this year? The structure's there. I mean, you could have used it for every match if you wanted to. It makes no sense to me. Now we get to the main event of the night, Roman Reigns versus Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship, with the hardcore icon Mick Foley as the referee for the match. This match had potential. There was some of the stuff that they were doing in there was really good. Taking away my dislike of the way that they pushed Roman Reigns, he is a very solid wrestler, and on paper, he has every tool you would need to be the top guy. Braun Strowman has every tool you would need to be a monster. The match was pretty good. And then we started to get to the chicane. We get Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre come down, and they're trying to get into the cage, which brings out Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, who fight with them. They chase them to the top of the cage. And then we see what has to be one of the most easily, I don't know how to put this, one of the most choreographed spots that you could tell it was choreographed in the history of Hell in a Cell. And we've suspended our disbelief on some of these people some of these falls off of the cell or off the side of the cell. And this one, you have Rollins and Ziggler bashing each other's head against the cell, and then they both at the same time bash their heads. They clearly turn and look to where they're going to drop, and then jump off of the cell towards the tables. So, for as dangerous as that spot really is, because you could hurt yourself really badly, end your career, break your neck, break your back, break any bone in your body, shatter your skull. There is so much that could go wrong in that spot. It looked like total garbage. It looked like two guys cooperating with each other. You could see through the magic. I don't go see David Copperfield to know how he does the card tricks. I don't see Penn and Teller to know how they saw the woman in half. I don't want to know. I want to see the magic trick. I know that there is a trick to the magic, but I don't want to be able to see it. And in this spot, you were able to see the cooperation, see them clearly jump towards the tables they were going to land on, and it took it away from me. That bothered me. After which we see Brock Lesnar make a surprise appearance with his advocate Paul Heyman. Brock kicks the door in, lays waste to Reigns, and Braun Strowman beats him down a little bit, hits two F5s, and leaves him laying, and then this show's over. There's no winner. No winner in Hell in the Cell. And we never knew if Drew McIntyre or Dean Ambrose got off the top of the cage, because we never seen them get down. I never seen them climb down. I didn't see them get thrown off of it. So, are they still up there? Maybe. Who knows? This would have been better if Brock beat them both down and then maybe put Reigns on top of Braun or vice versa. But for a Hell in the Cell, and then we're reminded immediately after the show with the Mick Foley 20-year introspective with Mick Foley as the referee. You're going to end it in a schmoz? You're going to end it in having the match thrown out with no winner? For Hell in the Cell? Really? Hell in the Cell. The most dangerous match in WWE. And there's no winner. For the fact that I liked a lot of the spots that happened between Reigns and Braun, and even the fighting on top of the cage, I'm going to give this one a 2. I really wanted to give it a 0. But there were some things I really liked. Brock Lesnar's involvement, kicking a cage door in, like I said, some of the spots on top of the cage, fighting on top of the cage, which we haven't seen since Shane and Undertaker. Well, Shane and Undertaker didn't even fight on top. Well, Shane just went to the top. So we haven't actually seen fighting on top of the cage in a little bit. I don't know. Overall, there was this screwy ending. There was a weird roll-up in the mixed tag match between the two married couples. AJ and Joe the AJ tapping while Joe pins him. The weird finish roll-up thing that I think was supposed to be a DDT with Becky and Charlotte. And then the one that was a weird finish, but I think it was supposed to be with Hardy and Orton. Overall on the night, the finishes, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weird, either bad or badly booked finishes to matches on a card that had 8 matches. So the majority of the matches had weird or bad finishes. Overall, my enjoyment of the show, I think it was a 2 out of 5. There were some things I liked, but they were way outweighed by the bad. Hardy vs. Orton, I will recommend for till the day I die, probably. I think that's a great Hell in a Cell match, a great example of what can happen and what the Cell match could be. Reigns versus Braun had potential, and there were glimpses of it, but the execution. The tag team title match, Ziggler and McIntyre versus Rollins and Ambrose. Again, a lot of people liked it more than I did, and I don't know if it was my mindset was already set that they had to top with what Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy did. But it just didn't feel like a special match. Again, overall, I'm giving the night a 2. I'm giving Hell in a Cell 2 out of 5. If anything, I recommend watching Hardy and Orton if you haven't watched this show. Becky and Charlotte if you really want to see Becky Lynch win the championship. And that's about it. I mean, everything else is very skippable. The tag team match, while people I think online liked it, I still don't think it's anything special in my opinion. But that's what I have to say on that. My name is George Coles, and this has been my review of WWE Hell in a Cell.